This is the first part of our financial series called Mind Your Money. This topic is extremely important as it has a direct impact on our personal lives as well as our businesses. And today we have Vasi Govender, who is Nedbank Area Client Manager, Small Business Professional Banking, Retail Relationship Banking. She is also the BMF KZN Provincial Secretary. And Vasi is going to help us today to better understand our credit history, our credit scoring, what makes up our scoring, and also what kind of information is your credit provider providing on your payment behavior. So I'm going to hand over to Vasi, and welcome Vasi, and thank you so much for making the time. So Vasi will go through the presentation, and please, I know you're going to have a lot of questions, so if you're not shy, you can raise your hand and you can ask your question. If you are shy, you can put your question in the chat and we'll get to it. So Vasi, thank you so much. I'm going to hand over straight to you.
Okay, thanks. So thanks everyone. It's a wonderful opportunity to be talking to all of you this morning. It's great that we get to understand the nuts and bolts of your credit record and what it does for you or what it doesn't do for you. And I think often we take this for granted, and it's important and imperative because this helps us determine where we're going to and what we want to achieve in our life. So what I am going to do is switch off my camera and move on to the presentation because I think I'm having a bit of network dips. So if you don't mind, I'll switch my camera back on later. So we're going to kick right into it. And then you can just let me know if you've got my screen. Okay, are we good, everyone?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're starting off with you and your credit record. And as you can see, the image shows us growing because we want to get better at this and we want to make it stronger and we want to be able to achieve the life goals and what we set out to do. And often in life, we can't naturally do it by ourselves. We're going to have to go to a credit provider. And a credit provider is going to be dependent on interpreting and reading your score to see whether you're worthy or not of the lending. So what does you and banking mean? Okay, so essentially, you know your history. And when you present, you're going to need to present a picture so that the bank understands you and your finance. It's important that you keep your documents in order and be open and transparent with your bank. Understand what it is your bank can and cannot do for you, and build and maintain a credit record. And that's what we're going to be spending a lot of time on this morning, around the credit record and really understanding how this can make or break life, so to speak, for you. And I think as a banker, speaking from a bank's perspective, it's also important for you to get to know your banker and the banking options that are available. Often we think a certain product might be suitable, but when you seek assistance and guidance, the result might be different. So I urge you and encourage you to start building good relationships with your banker. So what does it mean about getting the basics right? Okay, so we spoke about engaging with your banker on what your need is. And like I said, your banker is an accredited individual who has gone through rigorous training and does know the options and is an advice provider. So what we might think is fit in terms of, I need an overdraft, for example, to solve this need, might not necessarily be an overdraft as the ideal product. So have a look at what the funding options are. It might be a short-term, a long-term, and often, obviously, when you're buying a property, it's long-term funding, okay? So it's important for you to pitch and prepare for that bank interview or that meeting as if you were preparing for a big sales contract that you're chasing. Now, I want to stress this. And like I said earlier, you know about you. You're now presenting the picture to absolute independent third party who doesn't know about you, how are they going to build that credibility or that reputation or that trust in order to lend to you? And if we're looking at a business, you're going to need to prepare and provide financial records, which is, of course, your annual financial statements, latest signed documents, together with your management accounts, which is also the latest, an age analysis on your debtors, with clients showing the money that is owed to you, as well as a cash flow forecast. Now, I'm not sure if there's business individuals or people that run businesses in the audience, but a cash flow forecast indicates what your need for borrowing is. And I put in brackets to remain conservative because sometimes, okay, so let's take the second stab at it. So what do you mean when I say remain conservative? The example that I gave is that you might need 300,000 and you put in a need for 600,000. But when we analyze the documents, we're looking to see what the gaps are. What is it your financials are showing? And don't cast yourself out of the race. Put yourself into a situation where you can have an option to remain or obtain funding, not that you're going to discard it completely. So when I say remain conservative, it's not about milking this for what it's worth. It's about responsible lending and responsible borrowing for the need so that you can service that need. Because if you overextend yourself, then that's going to end up with problems and repercussions for your credit bureau, as well as your payment history. So when you're presenting to the bank, prepare a financial possession statement. It's about your assets, your liabilities. Do your own homework in terms of your income and expenses, because sometimes we think, okay, I can afford a 4 million rand home loan. But when we look at what your repayment is, and we factor in what we call a stress test in terms of repayments should the rates go up, affordability is not evident. And that dream home now becomes a fading dream. So be real about what you want to get. And then we're going to stress this point about getting a clean credit record. Okay, so far, everything's audible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We're moving on. Okay, so how do we do this? Firstly, be prepared. Don't be unprepared. And when I say be prepared, it's the stuff that I referred to in the previous slide. Know what you want and how you're going to achieve it, and demonstrate how you're going to achieve it. And the way you're going to do that is by you prepping and you doing your homework. So as bankers, we stick to the facts. We black and white people, and that is what we do. So it's not hypothetical scenarios or what if or maybe. So let's say that you are in a business and you want to borrow money. And you're saying to us, I've now landed this contract. Here is my signed contract. I can fund 20% of it. I need you to help me with 80% of it. Show us examples of your signed contract, okay? Have a strong sense of your finance. When you present a poor sense of finance from the bank's perspective, you're not building credibility with us. Your finances are the most important part of your business being a sustainable business. And don't withhold information. Be open, upfront, and honest with us. You could tell us that, look, if you do a credit score on me, you're going to see a judgment, and that judgment was settled, and I'm in the process of rescinding it, so it's going to come off my credit record. If you gave us that information up front, it would be better because we know what to expect. And if we come across it as a hurdle, we know how to counteract it. So don't withhold any information. Okay, so we said we're going to spend a lot of time this morning talking about what a credit score is and why is it important. So hypothetically, depending on which bureau you use, the scores can range between 519 and 730. But if you see in the example below, it does vary from 300 to 850, okay? So if your score is in the low range, based on this being the benchmark of 519, it definitely indicates that there's work to be done. And if you're in the higher end, that means you're good and you're managing your credit well. So if you look here, here's an indication of the color coding, so to speak, the good, bad, and the ugly. And obviously, the better you get, the greener you go. So that's how the scores worked. So on the back end, we don't necessarily know what is affecting our score, but here's some of the factors that affects how the score is determined. It's your payment history, and we're going to spend some time talking about this payment history, because if I had to ask you, do you have a Woolworths account? Yes. Do you pay it every month? Yes. Are you paying it on the required day? You might say no. And I'm going to show you the implications of that. Okay. What are the amounts owed? And the length of the credit history. How often are you taking new credit? And what type of credit is used? Now, when I say what type of credit is used, are you going in for those monthly loans where every single month, in the middle of the month, you find, oh, I'm short now. I need an extra R1,000 and I can go and get this. And it's merely a top up until I get paid at the end of the month. So these are some of the factors that affects how you get the score here. Okay, so your payment history, amounts owed, the length of your credit history, new credit, and the type of credit that you're using. Okay, so what I've done is I've put in an example of a bureau score. And if you look here on the extreme right, you're going to see that this score is 537. And based on the model that I showed you, that if it's between 519 and 730, we're going to rank this person. So obviously this person doesn't have a fantastic bureau score, but this is what we see on the back end, okay? So the information that I've blocked off is the name and the ID number. And then we have a look to see whether it's judgments, adverses, notices, payment profile. So you'll have a look here and you'll see that everything is zeroed. But when you look into payment profile, you can see that a number is starting to appear here. And I'm going to show you the correlation of this number in the next slide. So I spoke about having a Woolworths account and I asked you whether you pay it every single month. And you said, yes, you pay it every single month. Your payment's due on the 25th of the month and you are paying it on the 29th of the month. Technically on the back end, it's coming up as 4 days late, 4 days late, 4 days late throughout. And then eventually you paid it on the date it was required. So all of this is showing us that you're not paying your account on time. And whilst we might think, oh man, when I go past Woolworths, I'll pop in and pay it. But that's why we have digital banking. Sit where you are at your own convenience, pay it instantly. You do not need to go into the shop to pay it. And when I say pay your accounts regularly and timeously, this is what I mean, because it has a ripple effect on your credit score. Okay. So what is it that we can do to improve the credit score? Like I said, pay all your accounts on time every month. Do not make too many credit applications in a short space of time, because the message you're sending is that you're cash strapped. You're not living within your means. You need to live on credit. You're living on borrowed means. That doesn't talk much about how you manage your own finances. And don't use all the credit available to you. Try and use less than half at any given time, because once you max your limits, you're showing us that you're living hardcore credit, okay? So by example, if you've got a credit card and your credit card limit is 20,000 Rand, every single month, you're 20,050 Rand, you're 20,000, smack bang, you're 20,000, you're 20,000. That means you're maxing that credit and you're really dependent on that credit, okay? So it's not talking about you building your nest egg. It's not talking about you living within your means. You're extremely dependent on that credit of 20,000 Rand in your credit card facility. So what are some of the things that you can do proactively to manage your credit score? Okay. Everybody gets an annual free credit report, and you can get this through TransUnion, Experian. And it's important that you know your score. Know your score, because am I sitting in the bottom end? Am I sitting in the middle of the pack? Or is my number an indication that I'm managing my finances well? So when we proactively manage, there are no surprises. Now, coming from a historical banker position, we would often see that, oh, there's an adverse, or I've been handed over. But that was a medical bill from 3 years ago that they've listed me for 145 Rand. I had no clue that that was what was happening. But you've moved address, you've changed telephone number, you don't know the attempts that they've tried to contact you and make good on that payment. So when you manage your credit report annually, you will know what's going on, and if there are any surprises. Also, when you've applied for credit, know why you were declined. Was it poor credit score? Was it an affordability issue? Or did too many loans, the fact that you're taking a loan every single month, did that jeopardize you? Because those are some of the factors that we look at. Okay. Was there any missed or late payments? So if you recall that slide that I showed you where the person had a Rage account and every single month, bar one, they've paid 3 or 4 days late, that affects you. Did you know about a default judgment? You don't know whether a medical bill that was unsettled years ago has now resulted in a default judgment. Is it too many loans? And the other big thing is identity theft. Okay. So often you can have your handbag snatched and invariably our identity document is in it. What are people up to? Are they going and getting credit on your name? What does that do for you? So when we proactively manage and we get this report annually, these are some of the things that we can eliminate. Errors on the report. So there's thousands of people that the credit bureau is dealing with. They could have inadvertently listed you. So is that you? Did you genuinely have that account? Was that something that you indebted for, or is it a mistake? So proactive management would solve all of this. So how do you improve your score? The first thing we need to do is align your salary date and thereafter your debit order date or your payment date. So it's pointless in setting a payment date for the 25th when you get paid on the 30th, because you're always going to be late unless you're carrying surplus funds. Okay, so timeous payment of your accounts. Have a look to see whether it's an option to consolidate. So remember I said that several little loans can impact. Have a look to see whether you can consolidate the loans. And sometimes with consolidating the loans, you actually get a better interest rate, or you might even find that there's a bit of surplus compared to what you were paying for individual payments. It is absolutely fine to have short-term loans and long-term loans. But remember what I said in terms of maxing your credit and staying in credit permanently. Use the type of loan applicable to what your need is, okay? And pay off your accounts. So a 45 Rand debt or 150 Rand debt is not just going to go away. You do not want a bad debt written off, because that's going to show on your credit score. You do not want an account lingering, because that's probably going to result in an adverse or a judgment. So pay off your accounts. Know that I've squared it. It's a zero balance. Here's my proof of payment. Keep it in your file. Be organized and have your paperwork sequentially so that nothing can come back to bite you, so to speak. Okay. So which side of the equation do you want to be on? There's a green flag and there's a red flag. Okay. So the green flag is you show long stability and regular timeous payments. You've paid off your accounts, you've consolidated amounts, and there isn't a string of monthly loan accounts. It's okay to take debt, but you need to service the debt and pay the debt regularly. Okay. And then the red flag is missed or late payments, struggling to pay, and monthly multiple loans. Okay. So I've put in a point or two around managing cash flow. And if you are in a business, okay, you're going to have a thing called accounts payable and accounts receivable. Now, no man's an island, and we're very dependent on suppliers and trading partners to give us the goods or services. But the terms and conditions that we negotiate with the supplier is important. Ideally, you need to have a strong enough relationship with your supplier that you could get a longer term that you can pay, and you then have a shorter term with your debtors. So what that is essentially meaning is that you don't have to go out and borrow cash, because your supplier can list you. Your supplier can flag you as a late payer. So there's implications, and often people have the misconcept that, okay, it's in my business name, it's not me, but it all depends. You could have stood surety. There could be something that's coming back to you that has implications for you. So best negotiate upfront that you have an extended term compared to when you provide your debtors. And by that, I mean, let's just say your supplier gives you 60 days credit, and you're going to say to your debtor, my account is payable 30 to 45 days. So you still have a 15-day leeway, but essentially you don't have to dig in your pocket. You're using the mechanism of trading off between accounts payable and accounts receivable to maintain your cash flow. And that's part of managing your cash flow. So we spoke about having a shorter collection period and a longer payment period. So I'm hoping that what I've covered with you this morning gives you a greater sense of your impact on the credit bureau and what it can and can't do for you. So there might be questions that we're going to need to take, and I'm happy to pause at this stage and take those questions.
Thank you, Bossy. Thank you so much. Before I go into my questions, I just want to open it up to anybody who has a question. You can put your hand up, you can unmute. Yes, Nomvula, please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, colleagues. Thank you so much for this presentation. My name is Nomvula. Thank you, really, it's very educational. I just want to check on one thing here, probably you can help me. What is the reason when you go to, like, for instance, Experian, you see your score, but probably when you check it via, like, for instance, I check mine via Experian, and then when I check via Standard Bank, it doesn't show the same credit score?
It's two different bureaus, so thanks. That's a fantastic question. It's different bureaus that have gathered different information. So it all depends what information is fed through. So not all the systems are going to have exactly the same information. So I'm glad that you're actually checking and you're comparing, and there's a sense of awareness in terms of what is showing and what's not showing. So I don't know whether Standard Bank had more information or whether Experian had more information. Maybe you can share that with us without giving us too much of detail.
I seem to believe that probably Standard Bank doesn't have, sufficient information, because with Experian, it's clear what is on my account. I can see everything, but with Standard Bank, it's really not clear. So,
okay,
because I've just realized now that no, the score is not the same.
Okay. So what could happen, and what is also currently happening, is that we're limited in terms of the new act. So the new POPI Act prevents information sharing or passing on personal information. That's definitely going to be a contributing factor, because as a bank, we cannot share information with a third party at all. And then historic data would have been generated to your Experian Bureau check, where we were free and information was shareable from your retail account providers to banks to everybody. But now things have changed with the new POPI Act in terms of what can we disclose and what can we not disclose. And anything attached to a name and an ID number with a personality, so to speak, we cannot share that information.
Okay.
So sorry, on Mbula's question, so who is a third party? Who's considered a third party? So if
anybody except the owner of the information. So let's just say that you're the accountant, Farah, and you run a business and you do my books and you know everything and the ins and outs of the business, but I cannot disclose the information to you. You might say, okay, I need bank statements because I need to prepare this. I need to take an instruction from the
Bossy, we missed you there.
Yes, yeah. I got cut a little bit. She's still off.
Yeah, she's still off. But Nomvula, that's quite interesting that you picked that up, because that's why I'm asking the question, who's actually the third party?
Yes, like probably what she was trying to explain is that, like, for instance, let's say you need you know, you're applying for a credit to another, like for instance with Nedbank, and then Nedbank can have access to your Standard Bank account. Let's say your account is with Standard Bank. I think Nedbank can be the third party to your account, even in terms of the information that is on your that pertains your credit score. That's what I was really thinking while she was trying to explain.
But
that's quite correct.
We missed you, Voss. So we were having a conversation while you were waiting for you.
Oh.
So, but then we missed everything that you said actually. But how? So Vasi, I'm curious about Nomvula's situation. So does that negatively impact her? That there's kind of like bits of information here and bits of information there.
No, it all depends on, let's just say it's she's a Standard Bank client and she's doing something with Standard Bank. Standard Bank is not going to check several bureaus for the information. It's one or two. Normally the banks would use a TransUnion or an Experian, and that's where our credit search would go out to. It wouldn't go out to some of the smaller people or that kind of thing. But it's what comes back. So there's no prejudice whatsoever because it's what the information has been presented at the time.
Okay. Nomvula, are you okay there? Or do you have a follow-up question?
I wanted probably to check now where do I now complain to challenge the different score? Where should I go now?
Vasi? So I wonder if the ombudsman wouldn't come in there, Nomvula. The banking ombudsman.
Ombudsman, okay. Or even NCA, because that's what I was thinking. NCA, I'm not sure if NCA is also relevant.
Yeah. So I think there would be just, I don't think there's a whole lot of places you could actually go to complain about something like that. I think we're quite limited. We're quite limited. Vasi, we missed you again.
Oh dear. I sincerely apologize. I'm not sure what's going on.
So Nomvula asked the question of where can she complain?
What would the complaint be around?
The different scoring, because I mean, clearly I'm getting the idea that it's impacted.
So it all depends which, it's the credit provider's prerogative as to which bureau they use. And they're not going to change where they go and source their information from. So
I think the thing that I'm also picking up, Nombula, is how important the kind of information that is provided by these credit providers is becoming.
absolutely. Because like I said, it can make or break a decision for your future. I mean, imagine wanting to buy your dream home, and here you go, that your credit scores this, that, and the other, and this is what we're picking up. And it's purely based on the information that's being fed through. I think we're in for very interesting times now, given the dynamics after the Act has been published. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of information gets sent through and how that information gets sent through.
Absolutely.
Maybe the last one, Vasi. I read on News 24 last week that I think the system crashed from TransUnion side. Do you know anything about that? And then the impact it will have to us, the clients.
Ish, I can see this is a topic close to your heart. Huh? So yes, they were there.
Myself to buy a house.
Absolutely great, fantastic, and that's so proactive. And yeah, I salute you for doing that, because not many people take that stance. So well done on doing that. So coming back to your question, there has been a data breach in terms of TransUnion, and I think that they're being asked to pay ransom for the information, or so that it's not further compromised. But like I showed you on the screen where I did the example, it's got a person's ID number, it's got a person's full name, and then all the exposure that they've got. So how that information can be manipulated is quite expensive. And yeah, I'm not going to go into that detail. It all depends on what kind of criminal mind you have. And that's why it's more important that we become alert about these things, like you're doing, and proactively manage it, to say, okay, I wasn't the one who went and incurred debt or went to a furniture store and bought a lounge suite that cost 60,000 rands. That's not me. And when they go back to details, they can establish that. And a lot of institutions or organizations are moving to biometrics, because with identity fraud, having produced an ID is one thing, but matching the individual in front of you to that ID is another thing. So sometimes we get irritated because it needs a thumbprint, or it needs to scan your image back to what the Department of Home Affairs has. But those are all security measures, trying to connect with the right person and ensuring that it doesn't fall in the wrong hands.
Okay.
So hopefully that's covered that, Mvola.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vasi. Thank you.
Thanks for engaging.
Okay.
So does anybody else have a?
Yeah, I wanted to come in. This is Tandika.
Hey,
Hi.
how you? Thank you so much for Tim.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much. I'm trying to find my hand button, but I couldn't. Sorry for not raising my hand. But
No
whilst Vasi, you were on the biometric, I've just had an experience where well, I don't know whether I would say I was hacked or I was robbed, but it's a case of fraud by, the Vodacom and MTN online agents. Right. They took cell phone contracts on my name. And when I went to MTN to check, I found that they asked me to use my thumb. And I put in my thumb because they said the biometric metric helps. And when I put in my thumb, I found that they had created an ID. My face appeared there, but it was a photo which they had taken, I don't know where, maybe Facebook or something like that. But it certainly wasn't a photo that is on my ID book or my passport or any of my work photos. So sometimes, I'm saying sometimes even the biometric is getting to be a problem that is able to breach that as well. I'm just putting conscientizing members here that sometimes we can't now 100% rely on the biometric because they are able now to get into that space as well. So in my case, they took about 6 contracts between Vodacom and MTN, and it's the online agents, those people that phone to sell you stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a problem now. I conscientize my banker to say I don't have these contracts.
Right.
And then we investigated, and he was able to tell me, because I saw it on my bank statement. It's important to check your bank statement every month. Luckily, I checked, and he said he was able to tell me what those amounts were from or off. And then that's how I was able to attack it. But to my shock, when I put my thumb there at MTN, my face appeared, except that the information they had was incorrect, of course. Like they created the email address, their phone number, and
So they substituted everything else, the rest of the information, except your image and your thumbprint.
Yes, and also the image is also not the official image. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that's interesting because obviously they got a photo of you somewhere, and I think it also sensitizes us to public platforms in terms of the images that we post and what this could lead to. So yeah, we seem like we're not safe anywhere. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, definitely opens our eyes and ears.
Because I mean, if you consider, Thandeka, how many calls we get in a day to sell us something. And we can easily get caught up in one of these sales pitches. And the next thing you know, you bought 12 of something instead of just one.
Yeah, that is true. And luckily I do not even answer them anymore, not to be rude, but I've had bad experiences with these sales calls. One of my friends, they cropped the voice to say she had said yes to a contract, and I don't know how they cropped the voice because they always say the calls are recorded. So they managed to do that, and she ended up with 5 phones. But so I learned from that, and I don't answer anymore. But to my shock, I am finding myself in this situation now in Feb when I didn't even answer.
So hopefully you've placed stop payments on those debit orders and have rejected all of them instead of them going off your account. Just on the sidebar.
So, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I did. I did put in a case. I signed the affidavits. It took a lot of administration, to try and solve. In fact, Vodacom has just paid me back all the money that they had deducted because I put in a case and they investigated. I'm still waiting for MTN, but you can tell it's the same call center agent. They work for
modus operandi.
Yeah, it's the same person, but they work for different companies in one sitting. Like the company that is just dealing with call center people and working for different, like the bank, they will do the survey, the research survey, and then they work for MTN and the insurance company. Oh, I had insurance in that as well. And I had 3 cars, which I don't own, which they had insured. That was another issue, and so on and so on. So yeah, we must be very careful.
Careful. That's some hectic experiences, Thandeka. So is there anybody else who's got a question? Bongiwe, you were a young lady. Is there anything that's scaring you about all of this? And I think it's so important that that the young people also get this kind of information early in their lives, so that they can start developing a track record as best they can, a good track record as best they can.
Farah, I think that's a very, very valid point, because when you look at students that just come out of university, one of the first things that they want to do is get a cell phone contract. And when you've got a 0 score, it's very difficult to do that. So whilst we might think that credit is bad, credit is also good in that it can help you, depending on how you manage it, to get yourself a decent score. So I've just come off a session where I've done recently appointed interns, accountant trainees, and the first purchase that they want to make is actually a cell phone. And they can't do that because the credit score doesn't allow that. And
Bossy, you're missing in action again. Okay, while we're waiting, is there any other questions for Vasi? Because I've got a couple of questions, and I wanted to try and answer, because I think this information is so important for us to share with others, because this information is not readily available. No problem, Glenda. Thank you. Vasi, are you back? Vasi. Have we lost Vasi?
I'm here.
Okay, we lost you, but anyway. Okay, so Vasi, I've got a couple of questions for you. So talk us through. I know we've got a couple of minutes left, but I think this is important, because with COVID, it's left a lot of people stressed in terms of the financial situation, and we have a lot of these brokers out there that are wanting to assist, debt collecting and all that kind of thing. So how does an administrative order impact? Does your scoring look the same when you have an administrative order? Because that obviously comes to the courts, and then you pay this one lump sum. So, and it's normally contracted for 2 years, 3 years, and in some instances, more than that. So what is that impact on the scoring, on the credit history for an individual?
Okay. So once you sign up for the administrative order, or sign up with the debt collector, you contracted for a specific number of years, 24 to 36 months, depending on the value of the outstanding debt. That is then recorded against your name, so to speak, so that if we had to generate an inquiry on you, we'd know that you are under debt recovery. And that there's no further lending permitted. So when somebody has signed up for that, any institution cannot lend once that is in play. What then happens is that you've already had established accounts, and by contracting with the debt consolidator, debt buster, whoever's assisting you, they are paying, and they firstly have negotiated on your behalf a specific amount. They might have negotiated a better interest rate compared to what you originally had on the debt. And essentially what happens is that a set amount goes from your salary every single month to that debt enabler, let's call it that. And they then distribute to your respective creditors to pay on your behalf. So in terms of your credit score, if you had a vehicle that you are paying, a home loan, a credit card, your Woolworths account, whatever the case is, ideally, there should be a record of payment every single month in terms of those payments being made. And at the end of the period, once the debt review is finished, then that gets updated and that is removed from your name.
Okay, so once that's removed, you eligible now to go for, is it removed off your record? Is it still there hanging around because now you'd want to go forward with your life? Is it still hovering in the background? Is it still visible to you guys as financial institutions?
No, once it's removed, we don't get to see it. So it's there for a set period and thereafter it's removed. So unless we go into previous inquiries, that's how we'd get to know that this was under debt review. But once it's removed, it's removed.
Okay.
And the credit bureau does have years of information on you. So whilst if we do an inquiry, it might just pull up the past 2 years, but there's a wealth of information going back many, many years that they do have on you.
But it would be so unfair to go back many, many years.
No, so that's why the inquiry generates the 2 years, the last 2 years.
Oh, okay. So it's just the last 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So my next question, and I know we've got Glenda who's come on a little bit late. And Glenda, I want to just give you an opportunity if you have any questions. If you don't, I'll continue with these questions because I think it's so important for all of us. So I'm digging deep now into my past banking life, but because when we want to purchase a vehicle, we shop around, and what we don't realize, and I'm assuming it's still the same, Bossy, is that and you alluded to it in one of your slides, like don't go for lending or for loans too soon after one another. And I remember years ago when you do that, when you shop around because you want to purchase a vehicle, so you want the best rate, that every time, whether you're going to Stanik or Westbank or MFC, every time they do a credit check on you, it lowers your scoring. So, and I think that's so important.
Correct.
I think that is so
and that
important.
still happens.
It still happens. Guys, that is so important. It's so important for us to know that, because by nature, we want to shop around. I mean, for everything. You know, you want to shop around because it's a big ticket item. You know, a 1% matters. You know, a 1.5% matters. So I think that's important, and also for us to share this information out there. Glenda, please go ahead. You can unmute. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Pity that I logged in so late, but you know, bread and butter issues for us SMMEs. So I have a question. For example, I had an account, I'm just going to use Woolworths. I had a Woolworths account and I closed that account, but my credited Woolworths at the time was 10,000 Rand. I then now want to purchase a vehicle, and the bank does a scoring and it says to me, oh, sorry, your affordability is out because of X, Y, and Z. I then say to them, but, oh, it's on my profile. They would say it's on my profile, and I'm exceeding my limit. But when I check the profile, it shows I've got a 10,000 Rand I owe my ladies. How does one clear that kind of thing of the past, that you don't owe the account? I've closed the account, but it still shows on my profile. Oh, sorry, I was so long-winded now. But yeah.
No problem, Glenda.
No problem. Thanks, Glenda. So what happens is that the update is not instantaneous. When let's just say you've settled your Miladies or your Woolworths account over the long weekend, and it's not instant, it's not at the same time. Normally it updates like a month or two later. What you can, however, do is when you're applying for your credit at the respective bank, send them the paid in full letter as your confirmation, and then that installment, so to speak, or expense will be removed from the calculation.
Okay, thank you for that. One more question. I get my profile, and my profile shows that I pay 10,000 Rand on a bond, and yet I don't pay it, but because I'm married, not in community or property, that 10,000, my husband pays it, but it comes onto my profile. How does that work?
Okay, so what happens is that if you're a joint bond holder, you're 50% accountable for that. What you can do to mitigate the calculation is provide bank statements to show that that expense is coming off his bank account in its entirety, and that you're not paying it. Depending on how the bond is styled. So if you a 50% joint holder, it's going to factor 50% of the installment into the calculation.
Fantastic. You've just made my day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad I could.
No, because the other day I couldn't believe it. I wanted to buy a vehicle, but it wasn't declined. I made inquiries, but I then asked them for my profile. And I saw this and I thought to myself, my goodness, it's the first time that I actually checked my profile in probably 10 years. And I couldn't believe the stuff that was on there. I thought, wow, this can jeopardize, my future lending.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we covered earlier. So you do get a free credit check annually. And I encourage you to, use that opportunity. And depending on which bank you bank with, some of the banks offer you that facility as well.
I do bank with First National Bank. Sorry. Yeah, but we need to change that. We need to change that. Yes, we do. We do. I've been with them 100 years, like in 35 years. And I will say this to you. The best bank for SMMEs is Nedbank. I need to share that with you. And really not because you are here, is that I've said this, number one, on social media. I've also said it to the regional manager of Nedbank, and I've said it to the CEO of Nedbank. So
just so that everybody knows that Glenda is actually my colleague from the Eastern Cape. Yeah.
Thanks, Glenda, for being such a fantastic green ambassador.
Yeah. And that's the truth, though. It's the truth. The thing is this with me is I need to change. The problem is I'm old and change is not always a great thing for me, when you set in certain ways. But I'm really considering this because my own bank, you don't see what they do for SMMEs. But with Nedbank, I get invitations. I do this with them and that. And yeah, thank you. That I want to say
You're
to
welcome. You're welcome.
Representative of Nedbank. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda.
Thank you, Farah.
So Vasi, I want to just get another thing because I mean, also for me, an ex-banker and into enterprise and supplier development, it scares me when I hear business people saying, "Oh no, I'm going to purchase this vehicle on the business name, and if the business goes down, that goes with it." And that's not always the case. that's not always the case. These credit providers will and please correct me if I'm wrong, Bossy, will always put a clause in there and come after you personally, even after the business no longer exists.
That's absolutely correct, Farah. So it depends on how it's styled. If I'm Vasi Govender trading as whatever in my capacity as sole proprietor, there's nothing I can escape. I would be liable and responsible for that. Depending on the type of jurisdiction that you in as a director or a member, there's always shareholders liability, and it depends on what the shareholders liability portion is, or you could have signed surety, limited or unlimited surety. So there's it's very rare these days that you are totally absorbed from responsibility in terms of paying it.
And I think that would also apply to creditors, because we as a business, the account that you that and the credit you're given is largely on the business. It's largely on the business, but again, in that contract, you liable personally as well.
That's right. So like I said, when we were covering the accounts payable and accounts receivable, you are your business. In whatever form, shape, size, you are your business, and you can be held responsible for it. So there's no escaping. And if you look at some of the insolvencies and the sequestration, how does that happen? It's because things like that weren't honored or payments weren't honored, and it's your creditor that has now initiated this action against you.
Bossy, are you able to respond to Glenda in the chat? She's wanting details for conducting a credit check.
Okay, so Glenda, I can post it or I can share it with you just now. The one thing that I do need to say is, depending on which bank you bank with, you can get it via your money app, like for NetBank, for example. So yeah, so but I will get the details and pass that on to you.
Okay. So
okay, and then just before the audience leaves us, I think it's been a very engaging session, so thank you very much. We are doing a series in terms of money matters. So just as a matter of interest, what would be some of the other conversations that would be close to you that you'd want to consider?
Glenda, Bongiwe, I know we've got two Tandekas on, but Tandeka Ellenson and Tandeka, what kind of topics would you like us to cover? Because this is a series now, Mind Your Money. So,
oops, thank you. You know, as a business owner, I think I would probably like to see or hear more about how we as business owners can manage our money, or manage our money, that's another thing. Probably a topic on SMMEs, yeah, business owners. I think I would be interested in that.
okay.
Okay, thanks for that, Glenda. I think we'll engage with you just to get further detail. I'm conscious of time that we are now 12:07,
So
and I'm not sure what.
Vasi, so I know we've got Sky Training on here, and before we go, would you like to say anything? Sky Training? No? No comment?
No comment, I'm well, ma'am.
Are you good? Okay, good.
Yes,
good.
yes, I'm good, thanks,
I
ma'am.
hope you've enjoyed the session.
A lot, ma'am.
Good. And I hope that we're going to share some of this information, because this information, and I said it in the beginning, that this information is not readily available. You know, there's always these little, if I can call them, tricks to the trade that people don't share. You know, that they don't share with us. So I think it's so important that you know we share this, and especially with the young people. You know, with our young sons and daughters and nieces and nephews, because they're definitely going to they're going to battle with the whole financial. Okay, so Tandeka, I see your hand. Vasi, Tandeka Ellenson says how to reduce debt, the skill of reducing debt.
Okay, I've made a note of that, so I've got that noted. Thank you.
Yeah, I think these are
Um,
so important.
And I see Tandeka's got her hand up. Tandeka?
Yes, you can unmute, Tandeka. Go ahead.
Good day, colleagues. Sorry, I joined a bit late. But in terms of the topics that I would like to sort of hear on would be things that we normally argue with, for me, with my friends, in terms of personal finances. Whether is it worth it to, if you have more money, to put more money in the car or to put more money towards your bond, the pros and cons, and maybe the implications in terms of looking at it from the interest perspective. What would be the best decision if you happen to have maybe additional money? Is it worth it paying towards your car, or is it worth paying towards your house? And sort of just getting that understanding from a financial institution's perspective.
Okay, perfect. So essentially, the pros and cons of either investing, your investment options, or your payoff options.
Yeah.
All right, got that noted.
Captain.
Thank you. Thanks for that input.
That one's a nice one, Sandika. Thanks. That one is a nice one. Because sometimes we assume you've got extra money, pay the house off, but it may not always work for individual people and their individual situations. So thank you. Thank you, Glenda. Thank you for that, and thank you for joining us. I see Bongiwe also is the one with dealing with debt. how to reduce debt and dealing with debt.
Okay,
So,
all right.
So yes, I want to thank you. To all of you for such an engaging, and I think a topic like this you could actually talk for hours on it, because the more we talk, the more we think of situations that have come up in our lives that we've not managed to handle. Mbali, did you want to say something, Mbali?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I was struggling with the network, so that's why I joined in late. But I am interested if I could get the recording so that I can just go through what was said rather than repeating.
Okay, but do you have any burning questions? Something you I know you're an accountant, but you may still have a question.
Luckily, I joined in when she answered what I was interested in as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just more of how does the personal debt affect the business when you're trying to finance the business.
Okay. So I think we've got quite a few interesting ideas, and we can definitely turn it into a proper series with these topics. So from my side, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for making the time. And before you go, I just want to remind everyone, if you are a member, you would have seen it in your communication from Bongiwe. So please go onto our Facebook page and like. We are posting a lot of things there now, and it's quite engaging and interactive as well. And also, please spread the word to KZN. We have launched 2 programs. One is the SMME Mentorship Circle that we are providing, and we have an A list of SMME mentors, and we are providing free mentorship for any startup, anybody who's thinking about it. And it is, sorry Glenda, it is exclusive to KZN. We're ring fencing it to KZN. And for all, and that is also open to students, to graduates who are looking to start their business, okay? And obviously there's no fee attached to it. Please spread the word. And for our managers and our leaders out there, we've got our coaching corner, and the same thing applies. It's free coaching for, again, our graduates to have a session with a coach, and also for our managers and our leaders out there who are battling in their spaces and just need to just to have somebody to coach them through what they're going through. So please spread the word throughout KZN and encourage those who really need it, because I think the province has really taken a beating, COVID and with our riots. We really need to be supporting each other and guiding and assisting each other in the spaces that we are in. So please, Bongiwe, can you please put the link, if you can, in the chat for the Facebook page? So
Farah, just for the record,
yes.
Farah, just for the record, I have a Havenside Chats with address. So it's my second home, KZN.
Okay, Linda, we got you. Okay, so it's Facebook, BMF KwaZulu-Natal. Please go on and you'll be kept up to date. And the other initiative for our members, because the coaching and mentorship is for anybody in KZN, but our membership Mondays is every Monday we highlight and spot and put one of our members in KZN, BMF members, in the spotlight, and that's on our Facebook page and through our membership database. So yes, again, I want to say thank you to all of you. Vasi, thank you so much for coming through. I know it's not going to be the last one that we're going to have you here. And I also want to say thank you to Nedbank, for supporting BMF in the province. And I know we're going to do a whole lot more stuff together. So Vasi, your last words?
Thank you very much. Thanks. I think it was very engaging, but I think the bigger benefit for me is the information sharing and how this impacts people and making sensible decisions about going forward. And like I said, this is either going to make or break somebody, and hopefully we can get onto the right side of things and take the learnings and implement. So thanks. It's been a fantastic opportunity and I love the engagement. Thank you very much, Farah.
Thank you. So from me, that's it from me. If anybody's got anything else, then I'll be signing out. And once again, thank you very much for your attendance.